Welcome back and another episode of the Clean Sweep, episode 27. Today we're down on an Esquire Development site and we're going to take you guys through what it takes to carry out a construction clean. We're going to show you the different phases, bits and pieces that we look out for through each phase, and we're going to show you what the end product looks like. So let's jump into episode 27 of the Clean Sweep. So one of the first areas that I'll cover is the exteriors. So usually on a construction cleaning project, you will have multiple phases, usually 3, sometimes 4. It depends on the size of the development. So that would be a builder's clean, a re-clean, and then what we call a pre-occupancy clean. Some people call them sparkle cleans. It's all the same. So effectively, we would carry out 2 cleans to the externals. We would do them on a builder's clean. So that would be de-taping the windows, because all these windows come protected when they're installed. So we de-tape all the windows and clean around the mastic lines so that they're ready to be masticed and sealed in. So we would carry out a window clean and a clean to all the soffits that you see on the roof on a builder's clean and pre-occupancy, so that they're nice and ready for when the customer comes in. The reason we do 2 cleans, on the first clean, builder's clean, when they're then doing the inspections, they can see clearly both sides of the glass to see if it's damaged. If we didn't do the outsides, they would be all dirty, and then you can never really distinguish if there's damage inside or out. And then the second one would be done pre-occupancy, before someone moves in to their nice new home, so it's nice and shiny, ready for them to move their furniture in, and they can see their reflection in the glass like we can on this one. So what we're going to do today, we're going to take you room by room and just explain some of the bits and pieces that we look out for when carrying out construction cleans. So we'll start in the kitchen. Again, 3 phases: builders, re-clean and sparkle. A builder's clean would see one of our specialist operatives. They'd come in, all this area would be protected. There would be no finished floors. The painting could potentially only be halfway through. So the first job the guys will do is take off all the protection that is on the units, because again, they come pre-protected to stop them damage in transit, and that's left on by the kitchen fitters. Very nice of them to do that too. So the guys would take all that off and give the area a good clean, ready so that it can be assessed for any damage. One thing we look for on a builder's clean is that's the first time that it's really been cleaned since install, and it looks in a good state. So we would assess that for any damage and put that on a report for the site manager. Bits and pieces we look out for on the re-clean would be the very tops of the cupboards. You'd be surprised what builders chuck up there: Red Bull cans, sweets, etc. We would check underneath the skirting boards if they are installed, because again, you would be surprised, some site managers on construction projects will come round and they will look in these areas. So the last thing we want to do is get caught short and they take that off and there's loads of dirt and debris under there. Inside the cupboards is obviously another one that gets looked into, so making sure all the cupboards are clean inside, ready again for an inspection. One thing we're looking for in kitchens with a re-clean phase is making sure all the mastic lines are nice and clear and free of debris so that they can be masticed, so the area is airtight. And then a pre-occupancy clean is the last one, where we give everything a real good wipe over. We put site packs like you can see behind me. The areas are given air fresheners so that the potential tenant or owner can just roll up, move in, and it's all ready for them to go and use. So we are now in the living room area. Quite a simple room, as you can imagine, because these properties, when they're purchased, they do not come furnished, so the room is empty. So initial build clean phase, again, there would be no carpet down, the floor would be bare concrete. One thing we'd have to do is, again, take all the protection off the radiators. One thing we look out for in projects like this is, and especially rooms like this, is paint. So there is a real difference between working with a small niche contractor and one of the larger main contractors, and that difference is areas like painting. So an example would be on a development this size, the painters would generally roll the paint on and then paint it by hand effectively. When you're talking 500-600 plots which some of these contracts are that we deal with the likes of the well-known home builders, for speed and ease of purpose and cost reasons, a lot of these properties are spray painted. So effectively they will spray the base coat on. Unfortunately, paint contractors have a habit of spraying paint on everywhere, including the walls and everything else that's in the room. So we would look out for things like paint on the light switches, paint on any of the sockets, paint on the door handles and the door hinges, and we'd have to take special care and attention when doing that because we don't want to damage anything by trying to get the paint off. So that's a key area we have to look at. Then we have the carpets when they're installed. That depends on how soon the property is going to be sold. So that can sometimes be within the re-clean, sometimes it's not, but certainly the sparkle clean, we make sure it's nice and clean again, ready for someone to move in. Another thing we look out in all the rooms would be over by the windows. So one thing we would look out for is the window reveals. These get quite a lot of debris in them and it's a go-to for site managers. So we always make sure that these are nice and clean on all three phases. We also have to take off the protection internally. Now this can be an art and something you guys need to be careful with because people plaster these windows, round the windows, and then what that does is it actually encases the tape that is on the protection. So you have to sometimes cut in very finely and you've got to be super careful not to scratch the window frame because that will cost you a lot of money. Internally the windows will have stickers, so again that needs to be removed. We don't use any bladed articles on the glass at JCD. We use a solvent based cleaner to get any sticker residue off so it's ready for whoever moves in. So we are now upstairs in the bathroom. That's one area that we tend to spend a lot of time. The reason for that is there are multiple bathrooms in this property. So this bedroom is a 2-bedroom property and it has 2 bathrooms. So we have a main bathroom and an ensuite, and it also has a large toilet downstairs. And we find that we spend a lot of time in these areas. The reason for that is, one, they're tiled, and again, you get a lot of paint and debris that needs to be taken off in this area. 2, they're focal points. You know, in a property like this where it's got no furniture, etc., the bathrooms and the kitchen are real standout pieces. You know, it's very nicely tiled, nicely finished, so we need to make sure that it's spot on. In terms of what happens between each phase, a builder's clean again would be taking off all the packaging, giving everything a going over for that initial inspection to make sure there's no damaged taps, no damaged white goods, and make sure they're all pristine. The re-clean would be, again, just to get them ready for mastic. So all the mastic lines look clean, around the windows, again, around the bath itself, so it's all water and airtight. And then a pre-occupancy clean would obviously be before someone moves in. And it's little finishing details like you can see behind me here. We put toilet rolls in every bathroom. We also have air fresheners on every main landing, and if it's a big house, we'll put them in some of the statement rooms like the kitchen, etc. So yeah, they're the areas we look out for, and these are real time consuming bits and pieces that we need to carry out in the bathroom and in the kitchen. So just take that into account when you're looking at these particular sites, or indeed you are a site manager and you're expecting a cleaner to get through this in sort of 15-20 minutes, because that's not going to be the case. So we're in the master bedroom upstairs now. This is a 2-bedroom plot. As per the living room downstairs, there's not really too much that goes on in these rooms because they're effectively just a shell. This one obviously has built-in wardrobe, so we'll make sure again all the protection is removed and the inside of the cupboard is nice and clean, and that's cleaned throughout each of the 3 phases. How did we get into the construction industry? Well, when we first started JCD Cleaning, I know lots of people that have their own businesses within the construction cleaning field, and we've done the odd 1 or 2 post-construction cleans, and they were literally just one-offs before someone moved in for people that had just built a house. And we've done an odd few of them and enjoyed it initially. And I thought to myself, why not approach some of the bigger contractors? They must have cleans on their particular plots, and it turns out they do. We've worked on developments that have 1 or 2 bespoke built houses, and I think the largest we've done is around 475 plots for a main contractor. So we've got some real experience in a breadth and scale of development size. I personally like to work with home builders that build between 10 and 50 plots. I find they tend to take a little bit more care. The end finish is a little bit better. Esquire are particularly good at that 10 to 50 range in my eyes, although they are growing on a weekly basis. Some of the bigger ones, unfortunately, I find they can be more difficult to deal with. They're more time consuming, they're more compressed in terms of their time scales, and that's, I suppose, where the house bashing comes from. That saying, oh, they're a house basher, where they're just putting plots up as quick as they can and getting them out onto the market. And that's fine if that's their business model, but from a cleaning perspective, they can be a little bit more high stress than maybe a development like this one. So obviously we've also got the common area, so that will be landings like the one we're on. And again, number one thing we need to look out for in this particular area is sockets, paint, door handles. The staircases, they're quite sensitive because a lot of these are wood, so we'd have to make sure we get all the paint off them, but without damaging any of the handles or the ends that go on the stump posts. So we'll make sure they're all nice and clean, get them all done, make sure there's no cobwebs, high levels, get all the paint off these. You do find that some phases, the carpet, if it goes in early, will have a protection on it, so we'll take all that protection off, ready for a pre-occupancy clean, again, so it's nice and ready for someone to move in. That concludes our tour around the property, and I hope you found that useful and informative. So what are some of the pluses and minuses of working in the construction industry for a cleaning contractor? Well, the plus side is it's very job rewarding. You get a lot of job satisfaction from carrying out the cleans from phase to phase, from the start to the end, and you see the end result before someone moves in. It's also nice to be part of a development, so you see it come out of the ground to the finished development like this one that's about 75 plots. We've been here since the start. It's nearly finished now. I think we've got about 3 plots left to conclude this particular project, and it's nice to be involved and effectively see a community be built. It can be a good source of revenue for companies that come in, providing that you've got the right structure in place to make sure you get paid on time. But you know, we probably do 2-3 plots a week on each development, so it's a good resource that comes in, keeps our guys busy, and I say it's a good for turnover. Some of the negative sides is payments. With construction, it is notoriously difficult to be paid money, so make sure you've got all the processes in place to make sure you adequately manage that. This particular developer, as we've never had a problem with, but as you get with bigger developers, it can be quite hard to get paid on time. One of the natures of the industry, unfortunately, just something we have to deal with and work our way around. Some of the other depends on the size of the development. You can have different site managers and different area managers depending on the development. So some areas will have a manager for when it comes out of the ground and gets to a certain phase, and then they'll have another manager. So you can sometimes be dealing with conflicting ideas of what clean is. So you need to manage that effectively by making sure effectively some of the areas I've told you today, where we've got paint, underneath skirting boards in the kitchens, all the tops, high levels are nice and clean, so that any manager can walk in and not pick you apart. And time can be an issue on construction cleaning projects. That they usually are very condensed with their timelines. So when you're brought in, sometimes you can be working on top of other trades, which can be problematic as you clean an area, then they make it dirty again. And 2, you can sometimes be very condensed with your timelines in terms of the customer will say to you, I've got a plot that needs cleaning this afternoon, the home builders are moving in tomorrow, and you might need a little bit more time with that. As with every job and every sector, they both have their pluses and minuses, but it is rewarding to be working in the construction field and see a development from start to finish. So I hope you found that video informative and entertaining. As always, hit that like and subscribe button for us, and we'll catch you on next week's episode.